You're staying home to clean the house. But I made a gift, you are not part of this family. She snapped. Why should you represent us? In a quiet village nestled between hills and vast fields of maize, there lived a woman named Adisa. She was admired for her beauty, with skin as radiant as the morning sun and hair curled like rivers after the rains. But beneath her striking appearance lay a deep sorrow that few understood. Adisa was barren. For over a decade, she and her husband, Kofi, prayed to the gods, sought blessings from herbalists, and offered sacrifices to the spirits. Yet, the cries of a child never graced their home. As time passed, whispers spread among the villagers. What use is beauty without a child to inherit it? They murmured. Though no one dared speak such words to her face, their pity weighed on her like a heavy yoke. Kofi, a kind-hearted farmer, loved Adisa deeply. You are enough for me, he would say. But Adisa could see the longing in his eyes when he watched other fathers teaching their sons to farm or chasing after their daughters in play. The absence of a child wasn't just an empty cradle, it was a void that echoed in every corner of their lives. One market day, as Kofi returned from the fields, he brought unexpected news. Near the riverbank, a baby had been found wrapped in tattered cloth, abandoned by an unknown mother. The chief had decreed that the child should be adopted by someone in the village. Kofi, you're not suggesting, Adisa began, her voice tight with uncertainty. Why not us? Kofi interrupted gently. Perhaps the gods have answered our prayers in a way we did not expect. Adisa hesitated. Could she love a child who wasn't her own? Would the villagers mock her even more? But Kofi's excitement was contagious, and his hope softened her resistance. The boy was named Kwaku, after the day of his discovery. Small and fragile, he clung to Adisa's neck the moment she held him. For the first time in years, their home filled with laughter. Though her affection at first felt forced, Kwaku's wide, innocent eyes and quiet determination began to melt Adisa's heart. Over the years, Kwaku grew into a bright, hard-working boy. He followed Kofi to the fields, eager to learn, and his cheerful nature endeared him to the villagers. Adisa's heart softened as she watched him thrive, and for a time, their family felt complete. But fate has a way of turning joy into sorrow. 7 years after adopting Kwaku, Adisa discovered she was pregnant. The news spread quickly. The women of the village flocked to Adisa's home, showering her with blessings and gifts. You see, they said, the gods were only testing your patience. Adisa basked in their attention, finally feeling the fulfillment she had longed for. But as her belly grew, so did her resentment toward Kwaku. She began to see him not as the child who had brought light into their lives, but as a reminder of her years of barrenness. Her love for him dimmed, replaced by irritation. At first, the changes were small. She gave him smaller portions at meals, claiming the baby needs more. When Kwaku asked to play, she sent him off to complete chores instead. Kofi noticed. Why do you treat him this way? He asked one night as they prepared for bed. He's not my blood, Adisa snapped. Now I have my own child to think about. Kofi was stunned but said nothing. He hoped her attitude would change after the baby was born. As Adisa's pregnancy advanced, Kwaku's life became one of unending labor. He fetched water from the village well, tended the goats, and swept the compound. If he faltered, Adisa scolded him harshly. One afternoon, she handed him a broom and pointed to the dusty yard. Sweep every corner, she ordered. Kwaku hesitated. But Mama, I haven't eaten all day. You'll eat when the work is done, Adisa replied coldly. The boy worked until his hands blistered, tears stinging his eyes. Still, he said nothing. One day, Adisa handed Kwaku a prized clay pot, a family heirloom. Fetch water from the well, she instructed. If you break it, don't bother coming back. The pot was heavy, and Kwaku struggled to balance it on his small frame. As he neared home, a goat darted in his path, startling him. The pot slipped from his hands and shattered into pieces. When Kwaku returned, holding the shards, Adisa's fury erupted. You useless child! She screamed, striking him with a switch. Kofi intervened, pulling Kwaku into his arms. Enough, Adisa. He's just a boy. Adisa glared at her husband, her voice dripping with contempt. Perhaps you care for him more than you care for your own blood. The annual harvest festival was the highlight of the village calendar. Kwaku had spent weeks crafting a woven basket to present to the elders. On the morning of the festival, he approached Adisa. Mama, may I go? Adisa's eyes narrowed. You're staying home to clean the house. But I made a gift, you are not part of this family. She snapped. Why should you represent us? Kwaku stayed behind, scrubbing the floors as laughter and music echoed from the village square. Adisa's labor began in the middle of the night. Kofi rushed to summon the midwives, but complications quickly arose. Hours turned into a day, and Adisa's cries grew weaker. When the midwives finally emerged, their faces were grave. The baby was stillborn, and Adisa's womb had been irreparably damaged. She would never bear children again. Kofi wept silently, holding his wife's hand. But Adisa's grief turned into bitterness. She blamed the gods, the midwives, and even Kofi. After the loss of her child, Adisa's life was a shadow of its former self. She no longer smiled at the women in the village square or attended festivals with Kofi. Her mornings were silent, her evenings colder than the harmattan winds. Though Kwaku had forgiven her, Adisa struggled to forgive herself. Late at night, she would sit by the fire, staring into the flames. Memories of her cruelty replayed in her mind, Kwaku fetching firewood from the dangerous forest, his small hands blistering from endless chores, his face crumpling in fear when she raised her voice. One night, Kofi joined her. You cannot change the past, he said gently. But you can shape the future. Kwaku still loves you, Adisa. Isn't that a gift worth treasuring? Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. But redemption, she realized, wasn't just about asking for forgiveness, it was about earning it. Adisa began to take small steps toward mending her relationship with Kwaku. She started with gestures, offering him the largest portion of food at dinner, sewing patches on his clothes, and making his favorite porridge before he woke up. But Kwaku, though kind, was wary. He had learned to survive without his mother's affection and wasn't sure if her sudden warmth would last. One day, Adisa decided to go further. She joined him in the fields, carrying a hoe despite her weakened body. Mama, Kwaku said, startled, you don't have to do this. I do, she replied firmly. You've carried enough for this family. Let me help. Kwaku hesitated, then handed her a basket of yams. Though the work was hard, Adisa felt lighter with every task she completed alongside her son. The villagers, who had once admired Adisa for her beauty, now whispered about her downfall. She brought this upon herself, they said. She turned away the child the gods gave her. At the marketplace, women avoided her, and elders spoke in harsh tones when she passed. Adisa endured their judgment in silence, knowing she deserved it. But Kwaku, overhearing the whispers, stood tall. One day, when a boy mocked Adisa's barrenness, Kwaku confronted him. She's my mother, he said fiercely, his voice trembling with emotion. And she's stronger than you'll ever be. The boy shrank back, and the villagers, hearing of Kwaku's defense, began to soften toward Adisa. A year after the stillbirth, the village was struck by a drought. The river that once flowed abundantly now trickled weakly, and crops withered under the relentless sun. Families rationed food, and tempers fled as hunger gnawed at their bellies. One evening, Adisa found Kwaku sitting by the empty granary. His shoulders slumped, and his usually bright eyes were dull. Kwaku, she said gently, what's wrong? I'm worried, Mama, he admitted. We barely have enough food for the planting season. What if we don't survive? Adisa knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. We'll survive because we're together, she said. And together, we're stronger than any drought. That night, she worked tirelessly to prepare what little food they had left, ensuring Kwaku and Kofi ate before she did. One fateful day, a traveler arrived in the village, seeking shelter and water. His name was Nana, and he claimed to be a healer from a distant land. Nana noticed the tension in Adisa's household and approached her. "Your spirit is heavy," he said. "But I see a bond between you and the boy. Nurture it, and you'll find peace." Adisa invited Nana to stay with them, offering what little they could spare. In return, Nana shared stories of families he had seen torn apart by pride and fear, and how forgiveness had mended even the deepest wounds. Kwaku listened intently, his admiration for his mother growing as he watched her strive to heal their family. When the rains finally returned, the village celebrated with a festival of thanksgiving. Adisa decided to use the occasion to show the villagers her gratitude and to honor Kwaku. She wove a kente cloth for him, bright and intricate, a symbol of her love and pride. On the day of the festival, she draped it over his shoulders and led him to the village square. "This is my son," she announced, her voice steady but emotional. "He is my blessing, and I am proud to call him mine." The villagers, moved by her words and Kwaku's quiet strength, applauded. For the first time in years, Adisa felt the warmth of their acceptance. As seasons passed, Adisa and Kwaku's bond deepened. She taught him the stories of their ancestors, passing down wisdom she had once thought she'd share with another child. Kwaku, in turn, grew into a confident young man, his resilience a testament to the trials he had endured. One day, while planting yams together, Kwaku turned to her. "Mama, do you think the gods ever regret what they take from us?" Adisa paused, her hands buried in the soil. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I think they also give us second chances. And when they do, we must cherish them." Kwaku nodded, his heart swelling with love for the woman who had once pushed him away but now held him closer than ever. Adisa's story became a cherished tale in the village, shared around fires and at festivals. The moral lessons of this story is that family is defined by love, not blood. Kwaku's unwavering care for Adisa proved that bonds of the heart are stronger than those of biology. Forgiveness heals even the deepest wounds. Kwaku's capacity to forgive allowed their family to rebuild and thrive.